a biblical perspective on life, culture, and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, today we're going to hear a story of uncommon friendship and sacrificial love. Our very special guest was born with spinal muscular atrophy, and he spent the entirety of his life overcoming extraordinary challenges. And what is amazing about Kevan Chandler is his community of friends and how they help him see possibilities and not limitations. So when Kevan had a dream to climb mountains and see Europe, his friends just said yes, and they helped him fulfill this dream. They ditched a wheelchair and carried him across Europe in a specially designed backpack. Perhaps it helps us understand true Christian community. So it's our absolute pleasure to explore this amazing friendship and the story of Kevan Chandler. Kevan, welcome to 2020 and welcome to our Australian audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Now, Kevan, as well as being carried all around the world by your friends and achieving many of your dreams, you've also written a book. Have you written just one book or a couple of books?
I've written a few, and the two main ones is I wrote a book about our adventures in Europe called We Carry Kevan, and then I also, this past year, we released a children's picture book version of that same story.
I love it. I love it. And how did you find writing a book? Did you enjoy it, or do you think I'll never do that again? Like, what's your thoughts on writing books?
Oh, it is my great passion in life. If I could be doing that 24/7, well, besides sleeping and eating, that's what I would do. I love every second of it.
Awesome. Who are your favorite authors? Have you got some authors that have inspired you over the years?
Yeah, actually, when we went to Europe, one of the places that we went to was England, and a big reason for being there was that a lot of my favorite authors are from England from over the years. Most of them have been long since passed away, but some of my favorites would be J.M. Barrie, who wrote Peter Pan. He's probably my favorite of all time. Wrote several really amazing novels, and another favorite would be G.K. Chesterton. And ironically, they were friends, so that works out nicely. But yeah, big fans of both of them, as well as many, many others.
Yeah. It's funny how friends can both be so successful at something, isn't it? And I think, was it C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were also friends?
Yeah.
And they sat around in a coffee shop in the days before cappuccinos and flat whites and lattes that we love so much today. But they used to talk about their books and really spur each other on. And that's really your story too, isn't it, Kevan? That you and your friends, or your friends, really made your dream become a possibility to see Europe.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, we met after college and had gotten to know each other through music and church, and a weekly potluck several of them were part of just starving musicians that, wanted to have a good meal once a week. And that led to asking this question of, if we left my wheelchair behind, what would that look like, and what could we do that we normally wouldn't be able to?
Amazing.
So we just went from there.
Yeah, well, let's go back to your childhood. So you grew up in the state of North Carolina, and you were diagnosed with a very rare neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy. So tell us what everyday life looks like for you with that disease.
Yeah, so as a side note, when I was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy, or we can just call it SMA, that might be easier, but my sister had already been diagnosed with the same thing a couple of years earlier, before I was even born and, on this earth. And so when I came along, I kind of showed the same symptoms and was diagnosed much more easily than she was. But we grew up in a home that was full of creativity and not letting our limitations slow us down. And what what the world would say we can and can't do was very different from what we actually could do, and my parents were a huge part of that. My brother as well. We have an older brother who is not disabled and is a very creative person as well. And so, yeah, I like to say that we got up every day and said, well, what do we want to do and what are we able to do? And let's kind of push the envelope on the ladder to make our dreams come true. So that's the house that I grew up in, the family I grew up in, and a part of that also was that my parents really opened the doors to our home for the world to come in and be a part of our lives and see how we did things a little differently. But they also uh, took us out into the world. So I was part of a normal public school, part of a church and a youth group when I got older, and went to summer camp just like all the other kids. The only difference was my dad was there to help me with the restroom and get me ready for bed, and my mom took me to, you know, punk rock concerts when I was in high school and see bands like DC Talk and Five Iron Frenzy and Audio Adrenaline and all those guys. And so yeah, really grew up pretty adventurous with my family, and so what that looks like now as an adult is having an open door policy in my own house and inviting people in to be part of my life and part of my needs. And maybe one of the biggest examples of that, besides the being carried around Europe on my friends' backs, is that I can't really take care of myself physically. I can't use the restroom or get a shower or get dressed or anything on my own. And so the guys that help me with that are all just volunteer. They're all just friends. No hired caregivers or professional nurses. It's just friends helping friends because of the love that we have for one another that is born out of our relationship with Jesus. And so it's a pretty awesome testimony. Every time I've moved or had new neighbors, I've had to go over and have the conversation of, hey, if you see a new car every day in my driveway, this is why. But so they don't get suspicious. But,
I'm not dealing drugs. Yeah,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
preaching
not
Jesus.
yeah, just trying to live it, man. So yeah, it's been an awesome testimony to the world around us, but it's also been just great for myself as well as these guys to grow closer to the Lord by growing closer in our own relationships. And I like to think of it as I start my day every day with Jesus, because these guys are showing me the love of Jesus through their actions, and it's pretty phenomenal for me and my heart and what it does for me.
Yeah, I bet. And I want to go back to your childhood. So obviously faith was a really big part of your childhood, a big part of your family. Your mum and dad, I'm guessing, had a very strong faith in God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did, and they do. I grew up in the church, and when I was about 6, I was really having trouble sleeping because I couldn't wrap my head around eternity, and I thought, as a 6-year-old, I thought I should be able to, and my dad, knowing me better than anyone, knew that it wasn't a matter of explaining it to me. It was a matter of introducing me to the person I could spend eternity with. And so I remember him sitting me on his bed, and I had, again, grown up in the church. I knew who Jesus was, but that was when I realized, oh, I could have a personal relationship with him. And so that's kind of where my adventure began in that regard, and it's been a wild ride ever since.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. And but Kevin, like in regards to your faith and the disease you were born with, did you at any point in your life have to reconcile that? Like the obvious question, God, why was I born this way? Did you go through that journey or that wrestle, or you just accepted that this was the way you were born and you just moved on with your relationship with God?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that I know a lot of people do wrestle with. I personally just really haven't, at least to a great degree. I mean, there's low moments, hard days. With how my disability works, it is progressive, so I am getting weaker over time, and some days are better than others. And when I got married 4 years ago, um, and I started dating my wife a year before that. So let's say for the past 5 years, I have run into moments where I think, oh man, I wish I could hold the door for Katie, or I wish I could do the dishes for her today. And in those moments, I get frustrated and kind of ask that question of why. But at the same time, this is all I've ever known. I don't know what has been uh, missing physically in my life. And so I don't know if maybe that has some to do with it. But most of all, I would say what attributes to my not having that question being a big part of my identity or my struggle is that when I was introduced to Jesus, um, what I experienced and what I continue to experience is that uh, he he walks through all of that with me. And I know in Romans, when Paul was writing to the church, he refers to our adoption as sons of God, and he says that it is the redemption of our bodies. And that is what I've experienced, that my relationship with Jesus um, has it really redeems whatever's going on physically, because I know where my heart is, and so just getting to walk with him, ironically using that word, walk with him through life, makes all the difference.
Man, that is such a good testimony, Kevin. Honestly, it's amazing, and I know that will speak to a lot of people because sometimes things happen to us in life, or we're born a certain way, and we don't have any say in things and circumstances and our physical reality. But just to hear your story and just the strength of your faith, it's very encouraging. So let me
Yeah.
ask you though, how did you get married? How did you meet your wife? And tell us your little romance story if you don't mind.
Sure. So after our trip to Europe that the guys and I took, we kind of asked the question of, well, we survived that. What else can we do? What's the next crazy thing? And so we went to China, and part of our time spent in China, that was in 2018. We went for 3 weeks, and part of that time we spent about a week at a care center for orphans with disabilities. And my wife, now my wife, but Katie was working there. She's from the States, but she was there working in that care center. And so we met then. She was kind of put in charge of us to make sure we didn't get into too much trouble, and she was good at that, and translated for us as well some of the time. And so we spent a week together and really got to know each other and enjoyed being around each other, and remained friends for probably 8 or 10 months after I got home, staying in touch. And I realized at one point that I really she was in China and I was in the States, and I didn't like that distance. I realized how much I wanted to be in proximity to her and how much I wanted to share life with her. And so we began talking more in that direction, and asked her next time we were in the same country, we could go out for dinner. And she said yes. And every 60 days, she had to leave the country to reset her visa. So she said, well, in September, I'm going to be in Sydney, Australia. Would you want to meet me there? I had just been in Ireland doing a TED Talk, and she said, if you have any speaking engagements in Australia, that I'd love to see you, but otherwise I'll see you at Christmas in the States. And what I saw in that text was the yes. So I said, well, I'm going to get to Australia, whatever it takes. And so my dad went with me, as well as my friend Luke, and Katie and I got to meet up in Sydney and have fish and chips on the beach and Tim Tam slams after dinner, and it was great.
I bet it was. Which beach did you go to? Which beach? Do you remember?
We went to Bondi Beach one afternoon, and trying to think, we just spent 3 or 4 days just walking around the city and enjoying each other's company. So I really loved the city and enjoyed the beach, and we got to go out to the countryside at one point on a train for an afternoon. But just being with her was unbelievable. So exactly a year later, we got married, and here we are 4 years later.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and I'm glad Australia played a small part in facilitating your romance and your friendship there. And fish and chips on the beach at Bondi sounds like a good first date to me.
Yeah, it was pretty great. I highly recommend it.
Well, many of our listeners probably have already experienced it as well. But if you're just joining us, our special guest today is Kevan Chandler. He was born with a disease which doesn't allow him to walk, but his friends have helped him fulfill his dreams, or some of his dreams, which was to go to Europe and travel the world. He's also been to China, we just found out. He's also featured as a speaker on a TED Talk. He's an author of a couple of books as well. And we're going to take a short break. But if you would like to talk to Kevan, ask him a question, maybe just make a comment, maybe something he said today has really resonated with you. As I said earlier, many of us, we experience things in life which are not our choice. We're born a certain way, or we're born into a certain family, or things happen in our environment, our family, even our personal lives or our health, which are completely out of our control. But, the great thing about Kevan is he's maintained his strong faith, his strong walk with God, regardless of his circumstances. So maybe you want to talk to Kevan, ask him a question. Feel free to call us on 1-800-316-316, or you can text us on 0447 488 316, or send us a message through Facebook or Instagram, because we'd love to hear your thoughts or your comments. Or if you just want to have a chat to Kevan, give us a call now, and we'll be back with more of Kevan Chandler after this short break.
There are many ways people listen to Vision, including on smart speakers. Just tell your smart speakers to play Vision Christian Radio.
Alexa, play Vision Christian Radio.
Vision.
Yep, it really is that easy. You can also say, play V180 Radio for our music channel. It's just another way that Vision is helping you look to God daily.
Biblical history is unfolding before our eyes, and Israel is at the centre of it all. Station sponsor Christians for Israel Australia's free newspaper, Israel and Christians Today, can help you better understand these days we're living through. This free newspaper will keep you updated and informed about Israel and how believers can care for the Jewish people around the world. Subscribe for your free copy of Israel and Christians Today at c4israel.com.au. That's the letter C, the number 4, israel.com.au.
Helping you make sense of life, culture, and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
Welcome back to 2020. If you're just joining us, our special guest is Kevan Chandler. He was born with a fairly debilitating disease, but he's not let this stop him from fulfilling his dreams and doing the things that he's always wanted to do. And part of his story is that he had these amazing friends who helped him fulfill that dream. They ditched his wheelchair and they carried him around Europe because he'd always wanted to go there. He went to England. He's a real fan of some English authors, some historical authors, and then he went to China and he met his wife. Kevin, you got the most amazing story. I got to say, I just love your story. And we're opening up the talk lines now. Maybe you want to ask Kevin a question. Maybe you want to make a comment. Something he said has really resonated with you. You can call us on 1-800-316-316. And Kevin, you did feature on a TED Talk as a speaker, and you went all the way to Ireland to do that. That's quite an honour and quite an achievement. Most of us mere mortals don't get invited to do a TED Talk. So tell us, what did you talk about on that TED Talk?
Yeah, so the focus of that talk was really just a brief moment from our original trip to Europe, and sharing what I felt like was the one of the encapsulations of the whole experience, which was one afternoon when we were in England on that original trip. My friend Tom was carrying me on his back out in the countryside, and we came up over a hill, and he looked around and said, this will do. And I didn't realize what he meant by that, but what he meant was, this will do for a place that we can set Kevan on the ground and leave him by himself for a bit. And he was recalling something that I had said several months before to him, that if I could physically go out on my own, I would go out into the middle of a field and just stand there, just the sky above, the ground below, and me and God in the middle. And so he gave that to me on the English countryside. And so that, I don't know, maybe 20, 30-minute moment, I felt like really encapsulated this 3-week adventure that my friends and I went on, and showing how we cared for one another, and what brotherly love can really lead to, and how it can open up the world.
Amazing. I can just see that. That would have been so special. And the English countryside is so gentle and user-friendly too. If you do that in Australia, you're going to get bitten by something. There's going to be an ant or a spider or a snake, or something's going to come and bite you. But I used to love going to England too, and just lying on those commons in London. They call them commons, those green grasslands. And you just lie there just knowing you can't get bitten by something. I used to really enjoy that. But that must have been amazing, especially for you as a fan of English literature, and I'm feeling a real connection through their literature to just to spend that half an hour on your own and just with God. I love that. And we're going to get back to that story, but we've actually got a caller who's called in. Now, he's called in from Western Australia. You probably didn't get there when you were here. It's about a 6-hour flight from the east side of Australia, but his name is Granville. He's calling from Rockingham in Western Australia. Granville, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning, Andrew, and also to Kevin. And I just wanted to say how inspiring story, listening to Kevin and telling us about his disability, and how, in fact, he's really living a really full life and always has done. And that sort of friendship, that bond of friendship, has sort of really helped him to be able to do things, go to different countries. And then I think the most beautiful thing of him getting married and sharing his life with this special lady, you know. And it's an inspiration to help me and to encourage me in my faith. You know, I've worked in England as a social worker and as a carer out in Western Australia with people with disabilities most of my life. I'm retired now, I'm 77. But, you know, it's amazing what doors God can open. And if we put our trust in Him, how good He is. Sorry, I'm becoming a bit emotional. And, yeah, it's really good. And just listen to your story. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And I'm sure it's encouraged a lot of other people in their faith in Jesus Christ and their lives to live their life in a positive way, and basically to count our blessings one by one, you know. Because we've all got challenges in life, they're different challenges, but we all have challenges. But if we have Jesus Christ with us, we can go through those challenges and go through the other end, and you know, and we can have victory, and our lives can be a blessing to other people as well as to ourselves, and of course, ultimately, a blessing.
Amen. Amen. Kevin, do you want to respond to Granville?
Oh, just thank you for the encouragement and the observation, and you're right. I mean, it's all about the doors that the Lord is going to open to us. And it's easy. He's the biggest one. He made everything. It's easy to get angry or blame or put things on him. But then if we tune our hearts and open our eyes to see what he's actually doing, the doors that he's opening, it's really wonderful to be a part of that. So thank you.
That's okay. I really enjoyed listening to your story, and it's been an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to many people who are listening, a great inspiration to them as well.
Oh, thanks, Granville, and good to have an English gentleman on the line too. What part of England are you from, Granville? I'm trying to remember.
Say Burnley in Lancashire, not far. I used to support Burnley, the soccer club. I used to love soccer. I still do, but not as much now because money's corrupted it. But Burnley, which is in the north of England.
Oh, in the north. Did you get to the north of England when you were there, Kevin, or you just stayed down in the southern areas near London?
We stayed down in the southern areas, but I have hopes of getting there at some point.
Yeah.
Actually, Kevin, there's some beautiful scenery in England, and one in particular is the Lake District. That's in the north of England. And that's a beautiful area. If you ever get the opportunity of going there, mountains and beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And once again, God's creation.
That's it.
We are.
And you keep going north, and you get to Scotland, where my ancestors came from. It's beautiful up there as well. But Granville, I want to thank you so much for joining the conversation. So it's always a blessing to hear your voice, and thanks for being such a loyal Vision listener as well.
Okay, I appreciate it. And Vision helps me in my life a lot. I've just lost someone recently, and I rang up and Vision prayed for me. It's an elderly man. He's in his 80s. I'm in his late 70s. But I know now that man is is at peace. Yeah. Anything is in God's keeping. Thanks
Amen.
Very much, Andrew. And God bless you.
You too, Granville. See you, mate.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye.
And Kevin, we've also had a comment come through on a text message. I want to read it to you. It's a question to you. It says, "Hey, Kevin, firstly, thank you for sharing your testimony. What would you say to other people who are restricted in movement and can't get to church but want to know more about Jesus and how to have a relationship with Jesus?" What would you say to that, Kev?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will, first off, I'll say I'm a big proponent, although we are on radio and podcast here right now. I'm a big proponent of in-person fellowship and study of the Word, if that's possible. But there's a beauty too to this kind of thing, and a lot of churches have sermons and services that are available online, which is a great option these days. But I would also say you can open your doors and invite people into your home. If you aren't able to leave your home, you can host people to be there, and that doesn't mean that you have to, bake a cake or have things decorated or even cleaned. It's just opening your door and saying, "Come in and sit down and let's study the Word together and just discover what's in it as a group of people, as a group of friends." And I think the Word says that where two or more are gathered, I'm there, and so I think if you can invite people into your home and just trust that the Holy Spirit is going to work from there, that could be a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
Who knows? You might start a whole new church.
Well, I like your possibility thinking, and the question came from another gentleman from WA, actually Western Australia. We call WA. His name was Graham, and he's from Bunbury. So, Graham, I want to thank you for that question. And Kevin, let's just assume, I don't know if Graham's met Jesus personally, but what do you want to say to Graham if he's never received Jesus for the first time? How does he do that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he could probably call in and talk with some people at Vision for a more detailed conversation. But overall, I would say Jesus is the Son of God who came to this earth to live among us and live a perfect life and live a life that doesn't deserve death, unlike the lives that we live, and yet he was taken to the cross and crucified for our sake and for the sake of setting us free from sin and death. And so he did that for you, Graham, and he did that for me. And so he wants a relationship with you. And so the way you do that is by talking to him and saying, I give my life to you, and surrendering your life to him, and confessing who he is and who he is to you. So
Amen.
That's a good start.
But Kevan, we actually got a response from that gentleman who sent the text, that Graham, that you responded so well to, and he said, "Hi, mate." Aussies, that's all we say to each other, mate. That's all we know how to say.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Hi, mate. Great response from Kevan." He says, "I do have a relationship with Jesus, but he says, I do know many people who are trapped at home because of disabilities, and they say they can't get to church, and they blame God for their predicament." So he was really asking the question on behalf of some of his friends. But he said this, "But Kevan brought tears to my eyes. Great response." He says, "I love serving others." So he was really touched by your answer, mate, and your response. So thanks for that, Kevan. And as I said earlier, if you want to join the conversation, you can call us too on 1-800-316-316. But let's talk more about that TED Talk you did in Ireland. Is that the biggest gig you've ever done, Kevan? The biggest speaking gig with the largest audience?
Oh man, I don't know. I would say, sometimes with a TED Talk, it's actually a small present audience, and then it goes out to the internet. So probably that is the biggest. But I've really had the joy and the honor to speak at a handful of conferences that were fairly large, especially for rare diseases or pharmaceuticals and things like that. That I've gotten to share our story on those stages in front of fairly large audiences, and as a result, gotten to talk to some pretty amazing people afterwards.
Yeah, I bet. So you said earlier you love writing, but do you enjoy speaking, or you just do it because you're asked to do it?
I probably just do it because it's part of the whole package, but at the same time, I do enjoy it, but I often, I think I realize that I go to a speaking event and speak, but really it's the one-on-one conversations before and afterwards that are my favorite part. So the more people that want to call in to, this morning, the better. It's welcomed.
You love a good chat. You love a good conversation. Can I ask, Kevan, have you reached that point in life now where you kind of feel like you know what your purpose is, what God put you on this earth for?
I don't know. I guess so. I'm 38, so I'm not going to pretend like I know everything. But I do feel like maybe in a broad stroke sense, I do. I recognize that, well, first off, God's put me on this earth or given me life, let's say, to have a relationship with Him and to enjoy that and to enjoy it with other people. Just going back to that aspect of community. And then beyond that, I do feel like He has called me to tell stories, to tell the story of me and my friends and the adventures we have, and ultimately point that back to Him, and just to tell the story of His gospel as well, through various outlets and whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think being with people and telling stories, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, well, you're obviously doing it really well, because lots of people have heard your story, lots of people have read your book, and now you're on radio across Australia through Vision, and you've done TED Talks. You actually do have an amazing story. Do you sometimes just go, wow, how did all this happen? Like, how did all this opportunity come my way?
Oh, yeah, every day. I mean, still, every day. I think very often I just look around at, I said it to my wife earlier, I was like, how how did we get here? And, not in a fame and fortune way at all, but friendships and life that we get to live. It just continues to boggle my mind.
Yeah.
So thankful for it.
Well, it's the blessing of God, and you've obviously had that relationship with Him since you were 6 years old. And but you've also started this non-profit charity, and it's called We Carry Kevan, which is really cool. And what does the charity do? What does the not-for-profit do?
Yeah, so the nonprofit started right after we got back from Europe on that original trip, because before the trip, when we were planning it, we were all starving musicians, as I mentioned earlier, and so we did a crowdfunding, venture, I guess you would say, to raise money for the trip, to be able to take our whole group, and we called that fundraiser We Carry Kevan, and the emphasis of that was that the we wasn't just these 4 guys that would carry me on their back. It was actually anyone and everyone that would be involved, whether they gave money to the trip or gave us a place to stay on the trip or whatever it may be. The we was the whole world, and so it was really a means of celebrating that we. And so because of that fundraiser, we got some media attention and publicity through that, and so our trip around Europe proved to be watched by a lot of people, kind of on social media and through the news, and so before the trip and during the trip, but especially afterward, we started hearing from families all over the world, and they were asking 2 major questions. One was, where did you get this backpack that I was being carried in? And the other was, where did you get these friends? And so we started this nonprofit as a way of answering those 2 questions. And so we started it at the beginning of 2017, and we worked with a company called Deuter to develop the backpack. We had designed it to fit my needs, but recognized that not everyone had the same needs as I do, so making it a little more versatile right out of the box, and had a great experience with them. And then we just started selling and giving away that backpack to families all over the world. And now we are up to, I think it's something like 48 countries we have families in that have our backpack, and close to 1,200 families. And that's families that have raised their hand and said, we want to think differently about what accessibility looks like. We're not going to, focus on getting elevators or automatic doors or things like that, which are great. They're helpful and make a lot of life happen, but also sometimes you just got to put someone on your back and carry them somewhere. And so it's thinking outside the box. But a lot of families have said, yeah, we want to try that. And so to answer the second question, we come alongside any family that reaches out about a backpack. And, the best way to answer the question of where'd you get these friends is to say, well, we'll be your friend, let's start there. And so it's also the question that we have a lot of fun with, because it's, we just continue to grow it and explore it, and find new ways to introduce people to each other, and find new ways to encourage families on how to foster community around them wherever they are. And so that's really the big adventure that we're experiencing now as a nonprofit.
Yeah, I am curious. So tell me the story of that first backpack, the one that you took to Europe. Who designed it? Who made it? Where did it come from? It was obviously a prototype. It was the first one. So where did it come from?
Yeah. Well, to explain that, I'll give a little more background. Those guys that I knew through music and through potlucks and things like that through church, um, we asked the question at first, what if we left my wheelchair behind? We answered that by exploring the sewers in our hometown, and to do that, we made a very rudimentary kind of makeshift backpack to carry me in for a couple hours one night. And then from there, we said, well, what else can we do? Let's go to Europe. And we realized we would have to develop a backpack that was a bit better, thought through. And so we went to like a sports store, and we just started trying on child carriers, and the guys would put me in a child carrier and get it on their back and see what made the most sense. And so we ended up liking Deuter for their. We just felt like it was a good base to start with, and we called them and said, "Hey, here's what we want to do with your backpack. We want to adapt it and change it for my needs specifically." And they were really helpful. They worked with us on it and brainstorming. And my dad, he's retired now, but he was an airplane mechanic. And so you can imagine he can build or construct anything. And so a lot of it really happened in my parents' kitchen with an X-Acto knife and some styrofoam. And we would put things together and then go out for a hike in the woods or in the downtown near us, and then come back and say, well, this part worked and this part didn't. And we just kept testing it until we got it right, and then we headed off to Europe. So that's kind of where the original backpack came from. And so when we got back from the trip, we shipped our design to the company, and they took our kitchen appliance design and turned it into a factory professional design. It's
an amazing story. But Kevan, I got to say, you do have amazing friends. I mean, these guys, these three guys. I know you got more than three friends, but can you give them a shout out? What are their names? I'd like to meet these guys. What are their names?
Oh man, yeah. So the guys on that trip, we had Tom. So I'll just tell you first and last names: Tom Troyer, Ben Duvall, Philip Keller, Robbie Barnes. They were the four guys that carried me around, and then we had two other guys, Luke Thompson and Jameson Hill, that came with us to film the whole thing, because we felt like if we're gonna do something this crazy, we need proof that it happened. And so yeah, and then actually Luke, who filmed the trip, is the one that went to Australia with me for the first date with Katie. So he's a dear friend that's come around the other side of the camera and been part of caregiving as well.
And did he film the first date in Sydney?
No. We left the camera home for that one. Some things need to, just stay with the family, right?
Yeah. But these guys, I mean, what amazing human beings. And I'm assuming they're all Christians, these guys?
Yeah, they are. And they have their own walks with the Lord that continue to inspire me and encourage me in my own walk. And I talk a lot about that, especially near the end of the book, about how recognizing that they did this because of the love of Christ that they have experienced in their own lives. And so it's because of that we can care for one another.
It's actually amazing, and I can see why people do say to you, how do I get friends like that? Like, it's just, how do you answer that question? When someone says, how do I get friends like you? What do you say?
I usually respond with the encouragement that you can be that friend to someone else, and let's start there, and the other part of that is inviting people into your need, inviting people into what your life looks like, and if they say yes and they step into it, then they are those kinds of friends. And if you're the kind of friend who will invite them graciously into it, then you're that kind of friend. And so you kind of find each other along the way.
Yeah, and obviously church is a great place to find good Christian friends, isn't it? And
exactly.
Did you guys all go to the same church, or you met because you had a common interest in music? Were you guys all from different churches?
It was, for most of them, it was through music. We all played in different bands in the North Carolina music scene, which was pretty thriving at the time. But then Ben Duvall, he and I went to the same church at that time in Indiana, where I live now. He was actually the worship leader, so he was also a musician. But that's where I met him.
Yeah, and what music do you play?
So I play harmonica and sing a bit, try to sing, but I used to play in a band, but not these days. I'm busy writing books, so.
A little bit preoccupied. And you said you've moved from North Carolina, so are all your old friends back in North Carolina? Do you guys have to intentionally catch up now?
We do, and as you know, you grow up and get married and get jobs or go to get further schooling, and so those friends are spread out all over the place. But Luke and Tom and Philip are all still in North Carolina. Ben is still up here in Indiana. I see him on a regular basis, and but then other friends I grew up with are all over the states, and so yeah, there is a lot of intentionality with staying in touch, and it's interesting too, because I have a lot of friends here where I live currently who are part of my caregiving process. They come in the morning and help get me up, or they help out throughout the day and that kind of stuff. But I have to remind myself too that I have other friends far away who, because they're not here, they can't be part of that caregiving. It doesn't mean that they are any less a friend. Doesn't mean that they love me any less. And some of those friendships are my dearest and deepest just because of time and what we've been through over the years and the decades. But so I think there's a lot of intentionality. It would be easy to kind of get lazy and say, well, these are the guys in front of me and they take care of me, so they care the most about me. But it's a much bigger coalition of really awesome friends than that. And so trying to honor the ones far away and the ones here present with me is kind of an ongoing experiment.
Yeah. Well, God's really blessed you, Kevin. You've got so many friends. By the sense of it, you've got friends close, friends far away, and you really are blessed. And, you've got a beautiful heart as well, just hearing your heart and hearing you share about your faith in God and your life. And I can see why people are so drawn to you. Have you got any final words for our audience today, Kevin? Just something that's on your heart, or just something you say to everyone? Like if you were given a microphone today and someone said, you're going to talk to the whole world today, Kevin, what is your message in a couple of minutes?
Wow. Well, I was really prompted earlier when you read the response from Graham about people who are at home and wanting to be out in the world, wanting to maybe experience church, or maybe they're angry at God for their physical situation. And so as you were saying that, I was thinking about the gospel story and the testimony that we were sharing before the news break. And I was just struck as you were reading that response. I was struck with the idea that, Jesus carried his cross to Calvary, and he died for us there. He made that trek. He endured beatings and judgments that he didn't deserve. He took them silently, like a lamb to the slaughter. And if he will do all of that for you, he will meet you in your living room. He will meet you at the hospital bed. That's not a far walk for him compared to that one. And he did it before. He'll do that for you because he wants a relationship with you. And so I think I would share that. I would share, how much Jesus loves you. He wants to be with you. He wants that relationship. And he's not asking much, just for you to open the door and let him sit on your couch. Let him be a part of it.
I love it. Kevan, I love your heart. I love your relationship with God, and I love your friends. I wish I could meet your friends as well. They sound like the coolest guys, and I hope you tell them all the time to stay fit because they got to carry you, for a lot more years to come, so they need to stay in shape. But
yeah,
Kevan, honestly, it's been such a pleasure having you on the program today and just hearing a little bit of your story. And there's so much more to your story, and I would encourage people to go to your website. It's wecarrykevan.org. That's wecarrykevan.org. You can access lots of information on that website about Kevan. He's also on Facebook, he's on Instagram, he's on YouTube, he's on LinkedIn, he's on Twitter as well, on X as Elon Musk has renamed it. And but the website is a good place to start, and it's wecarrykevan.org. You may want to get a copy of his book, and the website will steer you in the right direction for that as well. And the book's all about how his friends carried him around Europe, and it's called We Carry Kevan. But Kevan Chandler, I should say, what a blessing to meet you today. What a blessing to hear a little bit of your story. And I want to thank you for joining us on 2020 Today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.